Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. It's pretty exciting in this day and age that we can have people joining conversations from all around the world. And I really appreciate when you choose to spend your time here with us. I know that our time is a very precious commodity, and I strive to make it really worthwhile for you. And today, I think, is going to be no exception. We're going to be chatting with Monica Cox about the ultimate feminine negotiation: fertility, surrender, and self-worth. So, welcome, Monica. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on, and congratulations on almost 300 podcasts. That's so
Yeah,
exciting.
it's hard to believe.
Yeah.
Thank you. You've done your homework. I'm impressed. And for those of you who may not know her, Monica is, I think it's fair to say, she is a trailblazing voice in the fertility space and a real powerhouse of feminine wisdom, which is why I wanted her here to join us. She's a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. That is a mouthful.
It
And
is.
a subconscious empowerment facilitator. And she helps midlife professional women who feel that they've maybe tried everything to be able to reclaim their power, reclaim their health, and often long for motherhood. And from her own 8-year fertility journey, which she shares, and to her, I guess we would call it a no BS approach, she blends science and soul and tough love and reframes the fertility narrative. And you know, I'm a sucker for reframing things. So moving it away from a clinical struggle to one of more empowered self-negotiation. And I think we don't often think of that of negotiation. So get ready for a really rich conversation about feminine leadership and radical responsibility and maybe rewriting the stories that we tell ourselves about our bodies, our worth, and what's possible. So, Monica, let's jump right in. Like you talk about fertility as a mirror for feminine leadership, and that really piqued my interest. When I first got sort of the query about fertility, I'm like, I'm not sure that's a fit, but the way you describe it really resonated with me as this sort of negotiation. So, how does the fertility journey reflect our inner negotiation with our self-worth or maybe even our identity?
Yeah, well, it's a really funny one because fertility is innate. And whether you think of fertility as having children or fertility as creativity and your birthright
I love
of
that.
being a woman, getting back to that innateness and that power with inside of you, because let's just face it, we were brought up in a society that told us our periods were yucky, they're painful, let's not talk
Yeah.
about them, they're a hindrance, right? You're moody, it's up and down. And so right there, we're going to get shut off. We're
Yeah.
going to shut off our creativity. We're going to shut off our empowerment. So whether or not you want to use your fertility to have children, that's not really the question, right? That's innate. It can happen sometimes even when you don't want it to happen. So, really getting back into that divine feminine flow with the empowerment of, yes, you can create your reality and reframing it to women can do it all because look, I don't want to do it all anymore.
Yeah.
Like I'm not here for that. It's exhausting. But I know that I can be empowered and create the life that I want, and using your fertility, your innateness inside of you is the ultimate secret,
Yeah.
is the ultimate goal. And I think that it was shunned for so long and looked as a hindrance because I think someone knew that it was really the power,
Yeah.
more power than
Yes.
any man could have.
Yeah. And I love that distinction. And I want to just for our listeners really put a pin in that as well, because I expect there was going to be maybe some pushback because a lot of women are like, oh, why are women always associated with having to have children and make that choice? So I love your reframe on that. And I
Mm.
love that you've brought it up right out of the gate so that it addresses that sort of potential pushback right out of it. Fertility isn't about whether you choose or don't choose to have children, whether that ends up being something in your life or not. It goes much deeper than that. And I really love that distinction. Now, I know you talk about negotiating sort of with your body, if you will, and I'd love if you could take us a little deeper on that. What does it mean to negotiate with your body, and how can we maybe reframe that relationship to be a radical act of self-leadership?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure there's real good negotiation. It's more about getting into surrender.
Mm,
And your body is your physical form, and it is going to tell you when you are healthy or unhealthy, when you have pushed too much, when you've been in overdrive, maybe even if you've been, not on the go, not using your creativity, not, in that deep embodiment. And negotiating with your body is really more on how are you feeling?
yeah.
And being that radical honest, that radical honesty with yourself and your body of like, yeah, I'm not feeling great. I feel sluggish. My periods are off, my periods are heavy and I'm moody and I'm gaining weight and I get acne and I have hair in places I don't want hair and I don't have hair in places I do want hair.
Yeah.
And it's really about listening. Like, okay, hey, I see you. You are this physical form, right? There's two aspects to us. We have the energy, the frequencies, the spirituality, but we are playing a physical game. We
Yeah.
have a physical body on this earth, and this is your tool, this is your instrument to live through. And if you are trying to say, hey, I am going to do XYZ because this is how I'm wired and this is what I need to do and this is how I need to get my worth and my money and my love,
Yeah.
your body will be the first thing to say, nah, I like I can't do it anymore. And you know what's so amazing is that your body is fighting for you whether you believe it or not.
Yes.
Your body is a healing machine. It is always trying its best to get you to the optimal peak
Yeah.
level performance, whatever you want to do. Now, the negotiation might not feel very fair because your body is going to say, I need more sleep. I need more rich, nutrient dense food. I need you to stop drinking as much, stop smoking, stop working as much, stop stressing out as much, over caring, over analyzing, being the provider for everything, this I do it
Yeah.
all woman thing. And so, your conscious mind might want to rule the environment and the lifestyle and all that, but really you need to start listening to your body,
Yeah.
your intuition, your discernment, and really getting more into that divine flow.
Yeah.
And the negotiation is more going to be what sets me on fire.
Yeah. I
And
love
once
that.
you get into that, you're like, oh wow, I can create way more
Yeah.
of abundance and self-generated love and worth and joy than I ever did when
Yeah.
I was hustling and I thought I was in control and in the driver's
Yeah.
seat. And it's a really tough lesson to learn as, women who grew up in this kind of masculine
Yeah.
dominant era of go, 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 and your body's the first to
Yeah.
break. And your fertility, which is your menstrual cycle, um, is a warning sign. It's your fifth vital sign.
Huh. And
So,
it's an ongoing lesson, right? And I want to just but
yes.
pause there for a moment for our listeners because, I mean, I've been over a decade now with the art of feminine negotiation and having been an attorney, I brought that very masculine, I thought I had to bring that very masculine energy and I've been very intentional about leaning into that feminine and I still catch myself every once in a
Oh,
while in those old patterns. And I'm really glad and I want for our listeners to put a pin as well. Notice that Monica hit it from both sides, right? I want to go back to that body piece that listen to your body. What it will tell you when there are things are wrong. And on the opposite side of that, recognize that when you're in states that don't serve you, it will affect your body. And, not to overshare here, but my husband and I have been scrapping a lot lately. And all of a sudden, I'm having a bunch of physical issues come up for me and recognizing that one affects the other and it works both ways. So I
mhm.
love that. Now, and you were talking a bit about those subconscious beliefs, I guess, woven into that last question. And I'm wondering, in what ways if we could go a little deeper, those subconscious beliefs act like, I'll call it silent negotiators because I see everything through a sort of a negotiation lens in our health journeys, and especially around fertility, but not necessarily just that.
Yeah. Well, once again, there's no negotiation with your subconscious and with your nervous system. They are imprinted with belief systems, thoughts, leading to actions and then leading to the physical stuff from, the moment you're conceived in your mother's womb, how you grew up, the society you grew up in, the household you grew up in, even generationally, how did your family a few generations back, were they in survival mode? It all plays into the creation that you're playing out right now. And there's no negotiating with it. You can consciously know and decide to do a few things better and do this and do that. But until you get to that root, that subconscious, to that nervous system of safety,
Yeah.
of joy, of love, of freedom, you're gonna go back into those old patterns
Yeah.
when you're in that fight or flight,
Yeah.
right? It's just an automatic thing. And when you consciously are aware, because that's the first step, right? You have to be consciously aware, like, hey, I'm doing something that I don't really like, but I keep doing it,
Yep.
right? And so it's taking that radical responsibility and just noticing and not being judgmental, being the observer and just go, that's really interesting. That
Yeah.
triggered me. I thought I dealt with that. Or I
Yeah.
consciously know that eating, a can of Nutella at nighttime is not healthy, but why did I do it?
Yeah.
So there's no negotiating. And that's where I think people get really stuck and frustrated is because they try to use the conscious mind to negotiate and like, well, willpower. I'll just do it. I'm strong enough. I've gotten myself out of these situations before where, yeah, you could probably do it, but it's the long way around. And
Yeah.
eventually, what I think's happen is that you eventually get to the subconscious and you willpower yourself through. You build a new belief system or you talk it out in therapy. But the easier route is to have that radical honesty and go, okay, I got triggered and that led to this experience in my physical world.
Yeah.
If I am radically honest, what emotion is behind that?
Yeah.
What event happened to me in my lifetime that could have triggered that? And if you can get into that, explore that, journal it, meditate, find whatever modality you can use because there's many, there's not one right way and maybe start negotiating with your subconscious.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a little bit.
Yeah.
And then what the missing piece is and why I feel a lot of people get stuck is that once you change that subconscious belief, once you reorganize maybe that emotion associated to that event, you then have to show up in the physical world and do that contradictory action. That's where the
Yeah.
science comes in, that neurons that fire together, wire together. And it's the consistency that's going to create your evidence.
Yeah.
So when you stay consistent, not perfect, because trust me, I
Yeah.
still find myself doing
Yeah.
things I'm like, oh man. It's like, okay, the next day, or maybe even in that second, I'm choosing different now. And the more you do that, the more you stay consistent. In the mundane, that's
Yeah.
another part. Not
Yeah.
on the yoga mat, not in your acupuncturist, not on that retreat
Yeah.
out in Bali, folding the laundry
Yeah.
at work in your situations that you are getting these like hits of like, oh, fire. You bring yourself down and just go,
Yeah.
no, we're going to choose different
Yeah.
today.
And that is the negotiation piece, right? It's being more intentional and raising your awareness about that and choosing to consciously start flipping that script until that becomes more ingrained. I love that. Now, you'd mentioned about radical honesty, and I think you called radical responsibility sort of one of the boldest feminine power moves. So,
Mhm.
what does that look like in practice? Like for your clients, how does it change the game?
It's taking a responsibility for the creativity in your life.
Yeah.
You are creating your life. Now, okay, there are circumstances that you didn't have control of that got you maybe to
Yeah.
where you are now, but it's now your responsibility if you don't like it
Yeah.
to change it.
Yeah.
No one's coming to save you. No
Yeah.
therapist, no modality, no
Yeah.
parents, no, not even no church or spirituality. It's you.
Yeah.
And when you get radically honest with yourself and call yourself out on your own BS, or you pay someone else to do it,
Yeah.
right? Because when you find a good coach, a good
Yeah.
mentor, they're not going to give you fluffy love. They're not going to give you the positivity that your ego seeks. They're going to say, hey, no, you're not showing up for yourself the way you know you want to show up for yourself. And if you can start doing that for yourself and just go, okay, I might, and this is really important for women who have it all, right? On the outside, they
Yeah.
have whatever their things are, the job, the career, the family, the kids, whatever it is. And this is what I had to do for myself. I actually found myself at the kitchen sink and I had my dream life and I was pissed
Yeah.
and I was in victim mode.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is crazy. So I had to take the radical responsibility of what was I doing? How was I showing up emotionally, energetically? Because I was doing everything right physically. And
Yeah.
that's the missing piece for a lot of people are like, well, I'm doing the right things. I have it all. But if you're not feeling that self-driven inner joy and you're showing up really for purpose, for service, for creativity, for love, you can feel empty,
Yes.
even with the family, with the money, with the house, with the cars.
Yep.
And so if you're feeling that way, you have to go, okay, how am I creating that for myself? And even if you have, let's say, people in your life that do trigger you or are causing the things, how are you still allowing that in your life? How are you showing up in that frequency to match that and still, and maybe it just might be boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, you're not setting the right boundaries for yourself because you, well, if you speak up, you'll rock the boat at work or
Yeah.
within your marriage or with your kids or whatever it is. And so you're saying small and you're creating, well, it's always me, like victim
Yeah.
mode or martyr mode,
Yeah.
and just getting radically honest with yourself. It changed my life.
Yeah. Well, and I'm laughing not at what you're saying because oh my gosh, like deja vu, like that was so resonates with it. I had ostensibly from the outside, I'd grown up from in a low rental apartment complex in a what was considered a tough neighborhood. I got myself through law school. I built my own successful law practice. I got married. I had 3 kids. I mean, everything just seemed like I had the cat's ass. And I just felt this niggling dissatisfaction. And then I'm like,
Mhm.
what's wrong with me that I'm not satisfied? And that's what started me down this journey of, as you say, radical honesty and self-exploration. And I want to just circle back for a moment because you said something earlier that's still sort of playing in my head about that when we're doing these exercises with ourselves, approach it with no judgment. And
Yeah.
for our listeners, I want you to really think about that as well. Approach it with curiosity. I
Mhm.
often talk about the art of fascination. Like, get really curious with yourself, not coming from a place of judgment. And I'm really glad you said that, Monica. I think it's so important. And you had mentioned surrender a couple of times through our conversation so far. And I think, many women are taught that to surrender control is a weakness. Well, not just
Mhm.
women. I think everybody's taught that, sadly, right? And I love that you flipped that script. It's something I feel very passionately about. So I'm wondering if you can chat to us about your philosophy about how surrender can actually be a negotiation of strength.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, I put it into my fertility journey, but I have a even more closer and probably a lot more people can resonate with too. And my fertility journey set me up for this moment. I had all the knowledge with functional medicine, with, subconscious mind, and I knew my dad had cancer 2 years before he was diagnosed with that
Wow.
intuition, right? And it's obvious, right? If when you know when you see the
Yeah.
patterns and stuff. And I would push him to seek help, do this, do that. And the more that I pushed, the more he would shut down.
Yeah.
He would hang up the phone. He didn't want to talk about it. I have lived away from my family for over 25 years. So
Wow.
I didn't live, door to
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
And so I surrendered. I said, look, it's his journey. Diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer throughout the whole body, bones, organs, all
Wow.
that. He was living in not a very good situation, and I invited him to our home. Yes, he would have to move from California to Hawaii. It was a very big thing. He didn't want to, even though it was
Yeah.
probably the best decision for
Yeah.
everyone. Once again, I had to surrender. I
Yeah.
had to let him play out his journey. So he got the ultimate, you have 3 months to live. And he went back to his place of living, and I think he realized it just hit him.
Yeah.
I need to be with my daughter. She is the one who can do this for me and usher him to, the afterlife.
Yeah.
And he called me up and just said, "Can I live with you?" And I was like, "Of course you can." And that's what I wanted
Yeah.
2, 3 years ago. And I wanted to control and do
Yeah.
all the things that I knew I could do for him. I mean, he could be alive right now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the facts,
Yeah.
right? With holistic and potentially cancer
Yeah.
medication and stuff, right? I'm not just saying the
Yeah.
natural route.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that deep surrender and trust in the universe that I was a character in his play
Yeah.
is is so important to learn when you're dealing with other people and you want to, control the situation, but also with yourself.
Yeah.
You might think you want to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to white knuckle your way through the whole thing and you're going to push through.
Yeah.
But whatever your belief system is, you can enter the word that you use. It wants you to surrender and it wants to trust that the ultimate highest best for you is coming if you allow it.
Yeah.
But that only happens when you allow that deep surrender and really drop the knowledge, drop the doing, drop the control.
Yeah.
But once again, very difficult to do when you have been in a state of fight or flight, your nervous system go, 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 you seek your worth by doing,
Yeah.
all those things. So it's probably one of the most difficult places to get, but worth the
Yeah.
journey.
And it,
Absolutely.
it takes a lot of unlearning, right? I mean, there's
Hmm.
such deep conditioning that
Hmm.
success equals control. And, I was very A-type personality in with the legal career, as you can imagine, wanting to
Yes.
control all the variables all the time. And that spills over into every area of your life. And I read the book Surrender, and it was a game changer. And again, but it took some work, like really bringing a lot of intention to the table to just surrender to certain things that were beyond my control and flip the story I was telling myself about it. Now,
Yes.
we haven't talked about burnout much here, and I think for high achieving women in particular, the all that conditioning about being the superwoman, juggling career and family, and burnout can often be that silent saboteur. So,
Hmm.
what would you say is the negotiation that for our listeners out there who maybe are at that stage that they need to be having with themselves, and why aren't they?
Yeah, well, the burnout is safety, right? You just keep going and going. It feels safe. It feels like you're doing. So if you're at that stage and you feel like you can't stop, don't blame yourself. That's just the patterns that you're running. Just be really graceful for yourself, to yourself,
Yeah.
and just know that you consciously even thinking about it has changed your trajectory, right? If you are even like, okay, I want different, it might take you a few years to get there, but just allow that to happen and keep facing that way more. When it comes to your fertility, whether you are having fertility issues because of burnout, or you're having creativity issues, or you're stagnant in your
Yeah.
career or where you want to go in life, it's really unfortunate because everything that got you to where you are now has been this hustle, hustle, hustle,
Yeah.
but your body is finally just like, I've tried.
Yeah. Enough.
I'm regenerating every single night, but not to my max capacity because your nervous system is on overdrive. You're not getting the right sleep. You know what? Even if you drink a glass of wine before you go to bed and you try to fall asleep without the wine helps make you sleep, you're actually impacting your recovery because your gut has to digest it, your body has to deal with the sugar, and you're not getting the regeneration through your brain, through your gut, through your cells that you need to reboost. So your body has just called it quits. That's it, that's what it is. That's what all chronic inflammation, no matter what diagnosis you have, it's just gotten to a point where your body's like, I can't heal you anymore. You're not giving me enough. And yes, with age comes with a slower rate of healing.
Yeah.
Yes, by biology and how we are designed here on this planet Earth, but also it's just compounds,
Yeah.
right? At 44, I'm way healthier than I was at 27.
Yeah. Nice.
But if I didn't change my habits
Yeah.
at 30, I would have been a 44-year-old with on
Yeah.
thyroid medication with a full-blown autoimmune disease, you name it,
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
So at any point you can change that cellular health. That's what this game, this physical game is a cellular health game. And like you pointed out before, it's both. It's
Yeah.
your energy, it's your emotions, it's your thoughts, it's your frequency, it's your spirituality, your creativity, but it's also your physical.
Yeah.
And the world we live in today is more demanding on your conscious mind of making the right decisions,
Yeah.
reading the labels. Does it have toxins? Does it have this?
Yeah.
And that becomes a full-time job and stresses us out
Yeah.
more. So once you get into that rhythm, it gets a lot easier and you can only control what you can control,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's just what it is. So with burnout, you just once again come back to the radical honesty, right? Is
Yeah.
it worth X, Y, and Z that you're doing? Is
Yeah.
this burnout, this fatigue worth the money,
Yeah.
the awards, the
Yeah.
not seeing your kids? I mean, or fertility.
Yeah.
If you,
Yeah.
to have a child. I get a lot of clients who are high achievers, right? That there's no low achievers coming to me. Let me just make that really clear. You're high
Yeah.
achieving, you've got a PhD in functional medicine,
Yeah.
you know what you're talking about, but you're not tapping into that subconscious of why you got there in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky part of really getting into, okay, I've got to really explode my world that
Yeah.
I have created to get to what I truly want.
Yeah. And I think it circles back to what you were saying earlier, Monica. And for our listeners, I challenge you as well to ask, you may be buying into this idea that you've hit the pinnacle of success because of all of the conditioning. But if you ask yourself, am I truly living into the things that I'm passionate about? I think for most people, when you're nearing or at that burnout stage, you're going to find that you are not. So
Mhm.
try and rediscover your purpose and your passion and those things that light you up and put you on fire, and find ways to bring more of that into your life instead of following this to-do driven path that we're so
Yeah.
conditioned to. Now, we've talked a lot about our subconscious, and I think, some blocks. And I know you and your work help women identify these subconscious blocks that they didn't even know they had. What would you say are some of the most common ones, and how do they show up in, unexpected places like our relationships or our careers?
Yeah, self-worth and self-love are the two biggest ones I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was even surprised about myself when I started doing this work that I didn't think I was worthy,
Yeah.
right? So we can do this right now, right? Your listeners, when I say out loud, tell me, how does your body feel? When I say, I am worthy because I am me,
Hmm.
how does your body feel? A lot of my clients go, that's really cheesy and it makes me feel weird.
Yeah.
And I say, isn't that funny that you've been conditioned to think that it's cheesy and weird to
Yeah.
not feel worthy because you're just you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it just plays into everything. If you don't think you're worthy and if you don't love yourself truly deeply, which, a lot of us don't, we think we do, we consciously understand, we can consciously look back in our lives and understand why our parents did what they did and why the girl, like a lot of us have friendship trauma that we don't realize have impacted our lives. And we can say as adults, but I get it now. But that subconscious, that nervous system, that little inner child, because
Yeah.
it's all that's who created this woman who's sat in front of you, who is feeling you, is all those different versions of you. And when you get imprinted over and over and over again that you aren't worthy unless you didn't get the career, you didn't get the school, you didn't get the husband. I have clients who don't feel worthy until they have children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we don't put that self-worth inside of us, it's going to just make it more challenging to get to what we want because we can push our way. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
IVF is a very good example of
Yeah.
pushing our way into fertility.
Yeah.
And I have an IVF baby, so I have no judgments on IVF, but I have some controversial views on it. But listen, if you don't get to the root of it, it will continue to show up again and again and again on all these different levels. And motherhood, as you might have experienced, will be the ultimate mirror of what
Yes.
you truly are feeling in your body.
Yeah. And I want to allow for a listener to, I want you to take a moment to really let that idea about self-love, unconditional self-love, really settle into your bones. Because, in workshops that I do, invariably, I ask them to start a brag list because as women, we're taught not to brag on ourselves and we
Yeah,
are so harsh in our judgment. And I start them off by saying, I give some time and say, I want you to list 25 things that you love about yourself. And invariably, Monica, like probably three-quarters of the room sit there unable to come up with 10 things, let alone 25 things that they can love about themselves. So again, for our listeners, I want you to take that as a personal challenge to,
yeah.
maybe when you're done listening to this and you're sitting somewhere and taking a moment, start listing the things that you can love about yourself and read it every night before you go to bed and challenge yourself to add five more things every day. Because I guarantee you do at least five things a day and more that you can really love on yourself about. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I resonate with that so hard. I mean, I would have been one of those women struggling to get five on the sheet.
yeah,
And then, the shame
yeah,
of wanting and the desires that you want all wrapped up in that too is
yeah,
just like another level. So, yeah, just be so graceful with yourself that if you find yourself listening to this podcast, you're doing better than most.
yeah, that's
You're
true.
showing up for yourself.
That's true. Now, you say functional health is often used the wrong way. So I'm wondering if you could chat to us about what you mean by that and how do you help women shift into more holistic healing models? And you've talked a bit about that, but what is the wrong way?
Well, there has been this industry that once again is very male dominant of like just do the diet, do the
Yeah.
supplements, do the cold plunge, do all the things, and you will be healthy. And look, it worked. I got pregnant naturally at 36, and I was just having another conversation to a health practitioner, and she was like, "You're right. It was very male dominated 15, 20 years
Yeah.
ago when me and her were going through our struggles." And I said, "Yeah." And it suited us, right? Like we were still masculine then, so it suited us. But when you're doing all the right things and you have your checklist and you got your morning routine and all these things are just flowing for you and you still feel stuck, maybe you're still not seeing the success that you want, that's when you're doing it wrong. That's when the advice is probably more masculine than the feminine. And it's really, this is why I teach intuition and discernment so deeply, because even when I say something, if it does not resonate with your soul, it is not for you.
Yeah.
And so getting into that alignment with yourself and finding the right path, because we have so much knowledge now, which is
Yeah.
great. We can take charge. But when we're outsourcing our power
Yeah.
and we're just looking for an answer, that's when we get lost. And trust me, I did some really not good things for my body in the name of fertility.
Yeah.
And it's just lessons learned. And I'm glad that I just used my discernment and said, okay, that didn't work. Time to
Yeah.
shift, right? Let's go somewhere else. And so we have to be really careful with the functional health space that we don't get sucked into these rigid routines and over testing. That's a big, big thing in functional medicine, but also in fertility. We're relying on these test results to tell us what's happening. And the truth is, if you think about it, your test results are one, a snapshot of time,
Yeah.
and that time is of your past.
Yeah.
It's not of your
Yeah.
future. It does not dictate your future.
Yeah.
So if you're just holding on to these results and like, well, and none of them are set in stone,
Yeah.
like none, they all fluctuate and they are just dictated on your cellular health.
Yeah.
So, making sure that when you use a holistic approach, it's right for you and really getting in tune with that. And the practice really is about it's going back to that self-worth and that self-love.
Yeah.
Because once you have that, you gain trust in yourself. You feel safe in your body, you feel safe in your decisions. And so you just move forward in aligned action,
Yeah.
which might not feel fuzzy and warm all the time. It might feel scary and just be like, oh my gosh, people are going to think I'm crazy for doing this. But if it feels right to you, that's your right path.
And would that be your advice then, Monica, to like if we've got women listening here today who feel that their bodies are betraying them, is that where you would suggest they start with that self-love piece?
Oh, absolutely, because your body is never portraying you. I mean, it is trying. It is. Look, the fact is, we would be dead if our bodies weren't self-healing machines.
Yeah,
In this day and age, with
that's
all
true.
the chemicals that
Yeah,
we get pumped, all the processed food that's around, even when we're trying our best, the chemicals
yeah,
that are even in organic products,
yeah,
we would be dead by the age of 10,
yeah,
15 if
yeah,
our body wasn't trying. So your body is never portraying you. Your reality is never portraying you. There is no, to get a little bit spiritual here, there's no judgment.
yeah,
No, the only person judging you is yourself.
yeah.
And if
True.
you're letting other people's judgments of you affect you, that's on you too, right? And so you have to take that radical responsibility and realize I truly don't believe that there's these karmic debts that we have to
Yeah,
pay back.
yeah,
We are just living a life. We were brought up a certain way. We are now understanding that that patterned us, that, contributed to the way that we are behaving, and it's time to take radical
yeah,
responsibility and clean it up. So your body is always fighting for you. Whatever you believe in is always rooting for you. It's really just you getting into that alignment and starting to take those actions and create the evidence,
yeah.
right? I had zero evidence that I was going to get pregnant naturally at 36. People will ask me, and I didn't really realize what I did until other people were kind of telling me. They're like,
Yeah,
you did something really impossible. You
yeah,
had zero evidence, really zero proof. You had all the experts telling you it couldn't be done. You're piecing it all together, and yet you just continue to go. And
yeah,
that's why I say your consistent actions will create your evidence for you. Or it will tell you it didn't work.
yeah.
Either way, you're never going to look back in your life and have regrets
Right.
and just go, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have just done
Yeah.
that. You're like, yeah, I did it. It either worked or it
And the
didn't.
power of belief is over and over, right? We see examples of that. So, for our listeners, believe in yourself, believe in the strength of your convictions. And I
hmm
was going to ask you if you had a final piece of advice for women navigating not only fertility, but any season of sort of deep longing. But I think you've really just captured that in that last answer. That was so beautiful. It's like a little master class all rolled up in one. So I normally like to end by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life, Monica? Again, it doesn't have to be about this issue at all, just one of those kind of aha moments for you that changed how you think or show up.
Yeah, I mean, it just really goes back to that radical responsibility.
Nice.
I mean, you can do all the modalities in the world. You can have the perfect diet. You can be a billionaire.
Yeah.
And going back to just realizing the radical responsibility, you create your reality, that will change everything.
And I want to
And
put just a pin there for a moment. You create your reality.
mhm,
And again, for our listeners, I want you to really let that, and sorry to interrupt, Monica, but I just want that to settle for a moment with our listeners because we tend to play the blame game. And
mhm,
I think when you start taking that radical responsibility that Monica's talking about and recognize that you have the power to create your own reality, you get to choose how you react to things. That's a game changer. So sorry to cut you off
yeah.
there.
No. And going back to our situation, people can be sat here and say, well, you have this and you have that, and, whatever use excuse. I grew up getting food from the church,
Yeah,
right? We didn't grow up in wealth. We
yeah,
grew up in a
yeah,
really bad mindset about
yeah,
money, about health, about abundance. And so I feel that if you can get rid of what maybe society has said, even you're a woman, you can't do X, Y, and
yeah.
Z, or, whatever it is that society, because we have to play those society games too, right? We are a collective conscious, we are moving through a world together. Do I believe you can have anything you want? No, I'm never going to be an opera singer. Like, it's just not going to happen, right? But if opera set my soul on fire, I could work within the opera. I could buy tickets to the opera. I could
Yeah.
be immersed in that world. So just don't put limits on your life.
Nice. I love that.
And That's my best advice. And
That,
be graceful to yourself. Just
yes.
have that gracefulness that you are probably doing better than most. You know, they talk about the 1% being the wealthy. Well, there's this 1% of people who are really tapping into what this reality is all about, even through all the noise that we have, and you're
Yeah.
seeing through it and you're showing up for yourself. And that's how, what's that line about more millionaires, maybe billionaires this time, more millionaires are created in hardship.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Graceful. What a beautiful word to sort of end on. Because I think as women in particular, but people generally, we don't have a lot of grace for ourselves. I think
Mm.
it's a beautiful message. So where can people learn more about you, Monica, and what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm everywhere on finding fertility, everywhere on the interweb. And I actually have a wait list going for a embodied energetics course for women who have done the healing but don't feel fully connected with. That has nothing to do with fertility. So you can check that out at findingfertility.co/embodied energetics. But yeah, you can find me if you are dealing with fertility issues or you know someone who is. I'm finding fertility everywhere.
That's awesome. And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well. And Monica, thanks so much. You've given us so much value in such a short time. I wish we had more. So thank you for joining us today. It's been a great
It,
conversation.
it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And for our listeners, just so much value here today. As always, make sure to give the gift of sharing. And as Monica says, particularly if you have someone in your life, in your circle, who's having fertility issues and beyond, maybe in terms of where they're standing right now, make sure to share this episode with them and allow them to, a rising tide lifts all boats. So make sure that you do that. And before we sign off today, as always, if you are looking to uplevel your negotiation skills so that you can negotiate your best life, feel free to check it out at artoffemininenegotiation.com. Make sure to grab a copy of my book of the same name if you haven't done that yet, Art of Feminine Negotiation, How to Get What You Want from the Boardroom to the Bedroom. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and you can start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.